Now, in this set of lectures, we will discuss about the Josephson effect, a very important effect in superconductors. And in the preliminary lectures I have given, where I have given an overview of the phenomena, we have already discussed the Josephson effect in great details, in quite a bit of details. Without really deriving the equations of Josephson effect, I have described the phenomena to you. So basically, what is the Josephson effect? The Josephson effect basically has two superconductors. One is a superconductor on the left and the other is a superconductor on the right. Now, you can take them as to be two similar superconductors. They can also be dissimilar. For simplicity's sake, let us take them as two similar superconductors. One is the superconductor on the left, which is written as SL, and there is another superconductor which is on the right, which is written as SR. And these two superconductors are separated by a very thin sandwich of an insulating layer. Okay, so it is like a sandwich structure. You have two superconductors on either ends, and in between it you have an insulator. It's a very thin insulating layer or a region of very weak superconductivity, whose thickness is of the order of coherence length. Okay, now what happens is that on this side of the superconductor, far away from this interface where you have the insulator, far away from it, the superconducting order parameters are psi L and psi R, and they are at a constant value. Okay, but as you approach the interface, the superconducting interface, a little bit of the Cooper pairs which will tunnel into the interface region and enter into the right region from the left side, and similarly from the right end across the interface, a little bit of the Cooper pairs will tunnel across this interface and enter into the left region. You know that the interface is no longer a sharp boundary, but the Ginzburg-Landau equation has shown you that the superconducting order parameter decays over the coherence length xi. So over this coherence length, little bit of the Cooper pairs will enter into this normal interface region and also penetrate a little bit into the left region, and a little bit from the left region will penetrate into the right region, and that is what is shown here. A little bit of this wave function has entered into the right region from the left side, and a little bit of the wave function from the right region has entered into the left region. What we are showing here as phi L and phi R are the phases of this wave function, which are assumed to be spatially independent away from this interface. Okay, these are roughly constant away from this interface. They don't have much spatial dependence as long as you are away from the interface. Okay, now so this is basically that you have a Cooper pair current, which is actually, there is a tunneling of current which is happening across the junction. Okay, so you have this junction and you have an interface between them, which could be an insulator, or it could be a normal region, or it could be a weak region of superconductivity, a region with very weak superconductivity, and then what you can have is that there can be tunneling of Cooper pairs across this junction, and you can get current. You can set up a tunneling current which can go from one end of the superconductor to the other, basically because this order parameter leaks from one end of the superconductor into the other end of the superconductor across the junction. And there are various effects which are associated with this. Okay, which depends on the phase difference. How much current can pass through actually depends on what is the phase difference between the superconductor, because these two actually interfere. These two wave functions from either ends are actually interfering. They actually cross each other and they actually interfere with each other, and that depends and that controls how much current is going to pass through the superconductor. So the phase difference actually gives rise to an interference between these two wave functions which are present from the other side, because they are actually interfering in this region. In this region there is actually an interference of these two wave functions, and that will control how much current is present, if current is going to actually be present inside this region, and also how much current you can actually pass through from one end to the other, and also the phase difference, which is phi L minus phi R or phi R minus phi L. This phase difference actually depends on how much voltage that you can apply across the superconductor. Okay, so these are the things that we will actually discuss and work out in this lecture. So basically what we do is that these two superconductors, we will actually connect these two superconductors by having a voltage source across we will connect them via so we will connect these two superconductors with a voltage V. Okay, and then let us find out what are the equations which govern this Josephson effect, where you have a current which can tunnel without any dissipation. Without any dissipation, if you look at the IV of this Josephson junction, then it turns out that up to a critical current, you can send in a current which is up to plus minus IC. This is minus IC and this is plus IC, where IC is the maximum current you can send through the junction without any dissipation. So without any dissipation, you can send a current up to this plus minus IC across the junction. Okay, however, beyond the critical current, there is a voltage which develops because you start breaking pairs, and there is a voltage which develops across the junction. Okay, so this voltage will develop across the junction, and you will have this this form of the IV curve which will develop across the junction. Okay, and because at this voltage you start actually exciting the pairs. Okay, and actually dissociate the pairs, so you will get a finite voltage appearing across the junction and a finite current at that voltage. Okay, so that is a normal current which starts flowing through the junction, and so you get dissipation and voltage appears and so on. So but up to IC, you can send in a current through this Josephson junction without any voltage, and that is because of this Cooper pairs tunneling through. But this wave function, actually from left and right, they actually interfere, and there is a phase difference, and that controls how much is the current that you can send across this junction. So these equations, that how much current you can send through the junction and what is its dependence on the phase difference, and how does the phase difference can be controlled by the voltage that you apply across the junction, these are actually given by the Josephson relations associated with the Josephson effect, and that is what we will try and derive. Since all of this, what I have just told you, I have already discussed in quite a bit of details in my earlier overview lectures. For now, here we will discuss about deriving the Josephson relations. Now, there are various ways of deriving the Josephson relation. You can use Ginzburg-Landau theory. You can use microscopic theories of superconductivity. One can do it with the Ginzburg-Landau theory, but I will not do the Ginzburg-Landau theory derivation of the Josephson relation here, because there is an easier method, a much more easier and a very transparent method of deriving the Josephson relation, which was suggested by Richard Feynman. And that way of derivation is quite popular. You will see it in many books, and almost all books on Josephson relation do it with that technique of which was suggested by Richard Feynman, and that is the technique I will use to derive the Josephson relation, rather than doing it through the Ginzburg-Landau theory. Maybe in some later lectures I can also upload the derivation using Ginzburg-Landau theory, but for now we will start with the Josephson relation as derived using the method suggested by Richard Feynman. Now, the equation which is used for analyzing the Josephson effect is basically IH cross del psi by del T is equal to E psi. Okay, this is the starting equation. This is the fundamental equation, because this actually tells you how is the wave function psi getting modified, what is the dynamics of the wave function, what is the dynamics of the wave function. This governs the dynamics of the wave function. This particular equation governs the dynamics of the wave function, and because there is a leaking of the wave function from the right into the left and from the left into the right, the wave function is going to get modified, okay, because a little bit from the right side is going to come into the left side, and a little bit from the left side is finally going to come into the right side, and therefore the wave functions on each sides will get perturbed and modified because of this leaking part which enters into the system. So it is a time dependent, so in a time dependent way the wave functions will evolve, and as a result this is going to be the equation which will govern the dynamics of the wave function, this Schrodinger's equation. This is the starting of equation. Now let us recall this is going to be psi naught e raised to phi, okay, as psi naught e raised to I phi, where remember that psi naught square is nothing else but the density of Cooper pairs, which is the density of Cooper pairs, and as a result mod of psi naught will be nothing else but rho s raised to half, okay, or we can also write it as I will drop the subscript s because it really represents the superconducting fraction inside the system. So this is nothing else but rho s. So you will have a wave function on the left which is rho l raised to half e raised to I phi l. This is the wave function of SL, which is the left superconductor, and rho r will be rho r raised to half e raised to I phi r. The phase is the phi r. I am representing phase as phi r. This is the wave function of the superconductor on the right. This is the right superconductor, okay, and so if we now we will write that because there is a little bit of the right portion which is leaking into the left portion in this process, you have a little bit the wave function which you are writing on the left side will have a slight perturbation which is coming from the right side, because a part of the wave function from the right side is leaking into the left, which will lead to the time evolution of the left side wave function, and on the right side a part of the wave function will be coming from the left side and which will cause the right side wave function to evolve. So the way to describe this is in the way Feynman described this, it was in the following way, that he wrote down the equation I h cross del psi l by lt is equal to L psi l plus k into psi l, and I h cross del psi r by del t is er psi r plus k times psi r, where this, so you have a coupled equation, you have a coupled independent Schrodinger's equation where psi l depends, I'm sorry, this has to be k times psi r and this has to be k times psi l, okay, where the time dependent part of the psi l not only depends on psi l but a little bit of the wave function, a little portion of the wave function, little bit comes from right superconductor, and here a little bit comes from the superconductor. So you have psi r which depends not only on psi r but it also depends on psi l, and similarly psi l not only depends on psi l but also depends on psi r, okay. So this parameter k is basically the perturbing amount which is entering from the right side into the left side, the wave function which is leaking into the left side from the right side, okay. So k is a small parameter which is the perturbation on the left side from the right side, or vice versa, also from the right the perturbation on the right side from the wave function which is leaking in from the left side. So these are symmetric wave functions which are describing the wave functions of the superconductor, dynamics of the wave function. So these the two equations, two symmetric equations, coupled equations describe the dynamics of the wave functions of left and right superconductor. Okay, where you have taken into account this process of leaking in of the wave function because of tunneling. A little bit of the right portion of the wave function from the right side leaks into the left side and causes a time dependence of the left side, and similarly a little bit from the right side can leak into the left side and cause a modification in the dynamics of the wave function. Okay, so if k is equal to 0, then of course if k is equal to 0, then the two superconductors are decoupled and there is no tunneling from left to right or right to left superconductor. So k is equal to 0 is for a very thick insulator separating the two superconductors. So if you keep a very thick insulator between the two superconductors, then of course you will not have any coupling between the superconductors, and then the two equations decouple. Then you have an independent superconductor on one side and the independent superconductor on the right side and independent superconductor on the left side, and then there is no reason why they should evolve in time, because there is nothing which is leaking in from the right side into the left side and nothing which is leaking in from the left side into the right side. So you can decouple the two systems. The energies in the above equations, EL and ER, are the ground state energies of the superconductor when the system is decoupled. If two superconductors are exactly identical, then EL is equal to ER. Okay, we consider that the energy levels in the decoupled state is exactly identical. The ground state energies are identical. It is natural to be so. Now and let us say that we take this as the zero level. Okay, this is the zero energy level. Okay, now when you apply a voltage to these systems, okay, to these two superconductors, naturally you have Cooper pairs inside the system which are finally electrons. Okay, so when you apply a voltage to the system, the energy levels will split. Okay, the energy levels will shift. Okay, so the left side energy level, the ground state energy level on the left side moves up by EV, and the left side energy level moves down by EV with respect to the zero energy level. When the voltage was zero, the EL and ER were both at zero level. With the presence of the voltage with respect to this zero level, your left side moves up by EV, right side moves down by ER, the right side moves down by minus EV, and so EL minus ER is taken as twice of EV in the presence of a non-zero voltage, because a non-zero voltage is definitely going to shift the energy levels of the system. The ground state energy levels will get shifted in the presence of a voltage, and that is what is being done here. So EL is taken as plus EV and ER is taken as minus EV, and we now put this back into our time dependent Schrodinger's equation, which contains the perturbative part, which is the right side part of the wave function which is leaking into the left side. And what is being considered in all of this is that when you are considering it for the thin barrier, is that your ground state energy levels in the presence of the voltage and everything are not going to change because of this leaking, this small leakage of the wave function from the right side into the left or left side into the right. The overall energy levels are roughly constant. It's a very minor perturbation. What it is going to change is the dynamics of the wave function, the rate of change of the phase part and the rate of change of the density of Cooper pairs, all of that will be getting affected. Okay, and that is going to be the rate of change is what we will try and find out. Okay, because of this small part which is leaking from the other superconductor into this superconductor, the overall energy levels will be remaining roughly unaffected. Okay, and that is the main idea of this calculation. So by considering this, we actually again write down our I h cross del psi L by del t is equal to plus EV psi L, which is the wave function on the left side, plus the perturbation. This is the perturbation part. This is k times psi r, which is coming from the right side leaking into the left side. And similarly, I h cross del psi r by del t is equal to minus EV psi r plus k times psi L. Now basically this is the perturbation. It is not changing the effective ground state energies of the superconductor in any way. Okay, so it's a very minor perturbation. It is only changing the dynamics of this wave function. Okay, so this psi k times psi r and k times psi l do not grossly change the ground state energies of the superconductor in any way. The only difference is that they change the overall dynamics. What they are going to affect is del psi l by del t and del psi r by del t. Now psi L, we know that we can in Ginzburg-Landau, we know that this is the form. Rho L is the density of Cooper pairs on the left side raised to half E raised to I phi L and psi R, and you can substitute that in this above equation. Okay, you can take these and put it in the above equation, and this is the form that you will get. Okay, so now once you substitute that and you get this above form, what you can do is that you can divide by h cross rho L raised to half E raised to I phi L, the phase. Okay, so you basically you will divide this part, so you will get it as I think I made a mistake here. There should be a factor of 2 out here which I missed. Okay, so because there is a half which will come from here, and so that would be there. So I by 2 rho to minus 1 del rho L by del t minus del phi L by del t is equal to EV by h cross plus k by h cross by rho L raised to half E raised to I minus phi L. This is what you get. Okay, and now what you do is you equate the real and imaginary parts. The real and in the imaginary and the real part you equate on either sides. Okay, and this of course you can convert it into cos phi r minus phi L plus I sine phi r minus phi L. Okay, so once you do that, okay, and what we will do is that phi r minus phi L, which is the difference in phase between L and R superconductors, namely the left and right superconductors, we write it as delta. This is the difference in phase between the left and right superconductors. So therefore, once you equate the left and right part, you will get del phi L by del t. Real and imaginary parts, if you equate it, it will be minus EV by h cross minus k by h cross rho L is to half cos delta, and rho L is to minus 2 rho L is equal to h rho r by rho L raised to half sine delta. This is what you get by equating the real and imaginary parts. Equating the real part, equating the imaginary part. So by equating the real and imaginary part, you get this expression, and therefore you can show that del rho by del t, del rho L by del t, the rate of change of the density of Cooper pairs on the left side because of some extra component of Cooper pairs which are leaking from the right side and entering into the left side. The rate of change of the density of Cooper pairs on the left side is equal to 2k by h rho r in rho L raised to half in delta. Okay, and also the rate of change of phase. Okay, now this is whatever I wrote here. These two equations are for the left superconductor, and for the right superconductor, of course, this will just reverse by raised to half cos delta and del rho r by del t is equal to 2k by h cross rho r rho L raised to half sine delta. This is for the right superconductor. Okay, now we assume that on the average, we assume that the average, the long time average rho L rho r, that means the densities on rho r and rho L do not change drastically. They are not continuously drifting as a function of time. They are roughly on the average constant. There is some perturbation around these values, but they are roughly constant. Okay, so roughly about average is constant. Okay, so because there is no charge imbalance on either side of the superconductor. We don't have any gross charge imbalance on either side of the superconductor. Momentarily, there are fluctuations which we have calculated, but on the average, the density of Cooper pairs on either side of the superconductor are roughly constant. We don't have any massive charge imbalance on either side. Okay? Now we assume that on the average, that is over the long time average, rho L and rho R are roughly constant. They are not changing too drastically as function of time because there is no charge imbalance. There is no gross charge imbalance that you are doing. It's a very small amount which is leaking in from the right side to the left and from the left side to the right side. Okay, so you don't have any gross charge imbalance which is being maintained. It's not a DC charge imbalance. It's not like a capacitor, okay, where there is a constant charge difference being present on this two sides of the superconductors. For rho L and rho R are going to be on the average roughly constant, and therefore if you take equation 3 minus equation 1, then you will have del phi r by del t minus del phi L by del t, which is equal to twice EV by h cross, and this is nothing else but d by delta by dt. Okay, the rate of change of the phase difference. Delta is equal to phi r minus phi L. Okay, and therefore your delta by del t is equal to 2 EV by h cross. This is the second Josephson relation which governs how the phase difference between L and R superconductor changes as a function of the applied voltage V across the junction. Okay, so this is the second Josephson relation. And if you consider that the current density, the supercurrent density flowing across the junction J is equal to minus 2E into del rho L by del T, or it could be del rho R by del T. The rho L and rho R are exactly identical expression. It is also equal to minus 2 E rho I D, okay, because rho L and rho R on the average are roughly constant. Their mean values are roughly constant. Okay, so J is equal to minus 4 A by H cross rho R half sin delta, where rho L and rho R are, if you take these as the roughly the mean values, then for rho R, then this is nothing else but is equal to 4K into rho cross delta J0 delta, where J0 is K into delta H cross. Okay, and therefore you get your first Josephson relation, that is namely the Josephson current J is equal to sine delta. Okay, then this is the first Josephson relation, which tells you that the current that is flowing across the junction depends on the phase difference between the two superconductors. The amount of phase difference between the superconductor determines the amount of current which is flowing across the junction. Okay, and the phase difference always adjusts itself so that it accommodates the current which is flowing across the junction. Okay, and so you get your two Josephson relations. The first is this, and the second is delta by the phase difference. This phase difference delta depends on 2EV by H cross, which is nothing else but 2E by H into 2 pi by V. So it is 2 pi by phi naught into V, where phi naught is the flux quantum H by 2E for a superconductor. So you can also express this. This is your second Josephson relation.